To my channel, Scary Stories Narration. Today's story is called The Legend of Carter Bale. The Roaring Twenties became a different time for all the Americans as the economy took a massive plummet. The Depression sank about every industry like a stone, and families of every class felt impact. Throughout the Whovilles set up around River Bend, there was one man who seemed positive despite all, the master of a liberator, with creative ways to collect his debt. Carter Bale was a moonshiner who believed in his craft. He was a savior to the working man and the devil to the preachers in town, providing some of the finest corn liquor in the area. If he wasn't using the silver tongue to work his way out of a jam, he was never afraid of getting his hands dirty. When money was involved, and many drunkards knew not to mess around with Carter unless you could pay. Being an entrepreneur was Carter had several clever camouflages from the law of the night, and he could see the wisp of smoke haunting the night as the sky conquered his brew. One day, as Carter was collecting his debt in town, a red-faced woman burst down the dirt road as if fired from a gun, with tears of rage streaming down her face. She screamed for Carter to reveal himself to her. As he walked out into the opening, she stormed over to him, whistling, rearing her hands back, and slapped him with all her might. "My boy never seen again because of you. He wandered off into the woods last night and came home smelling like an oil lamp," she exclaimed. "Well, ma'am, it seems to me like you ought to be watching your youngling and bit closer. It's a shame he won't get much snuffing ever again 'cause of you," he yelled as he spat on her feet. "Carter Bale may have the rest of those folks fooled around here, but I know nothing that scheming thief. Your days are numbered, selling gut-rotting liquor on this earth. You mark my word," she screamed as she reached for his head and ripped up several pieces of hair. Although bewildered, he didn't think much of her actions as I had thoughts of a woman's skirt. Besides, he had more important matters to attend to. Later that night, he went into the woods to tend to his still. There were 3 spread of strategical. He would only run into 2 at a time and leave one on reserve in case Johnny Law happened to stumble onto one of his hiding spots. A wise businessman will always have a backup plan as start and flame and boiler. He thought about the frantic woman. There was a sense of guilt that banged over him as the flames began to rise and become absent-minded for a moment. A smoker ember managed to escape from the flame and landed near his ingredients. He snapped back to reality quickly. 1 second fire began to consume the comfort. Hurry, he looked for anything to put out the flame, but it was too late. He knew he wouldn't catch for sure the entire, still becoming engulfed with. As soon as the fire had failed, it vanished. Frightened and disbelieved, Carter fell to his knees. He ran his fingers through his hair and felt where his hair had been ripped out of his drawn head. "The woman," he explained. He ran off the second he still saw that everything was still intact. All of his ingredients were there, the flames were stirred and seemed to be producing as normal. He clamped down and recent trauma, he decides to have a sample of his work. He took a ladle and got the spoonful and shine. As he tipped the ladle into his mouth, however, he saw that there was nothing but black, slimy bilge poured in his mouth. While spitting and screaming in a fit of rage, he paced back and forth, wondering what he was going to do with the taste of bagel water fresh on his tongue. It was already past midnight, and it would take him months to get the material together to rebuild and clean the wreckage behind. He had no choice but to try to make a new batch. When he arrived at the last still, he was still spitting bile from the last site. The burning rage man took out his knife and opened a burlap sack of the grains that lay before him, but the content inside made him leap out of his skin. As the blade cut open the first sack, spiders and maggots began to crawl from the holes and worked their way to his arms. Swallowing them away, he hurried back away and bumped into a small figure. "Hi, Carter," said a female voice from under the dark cloak. "It's you," he screamed while waving his knife. "Stay away from me. I'll gut you." "Now, there's no need for all that," she said, as she waved her hands at him while flung the knife into the woods under the stick of debris. "You know, Carter, I got to think about what you said about my boy not being able to watch anything. It's really a shame," she said as he began to walk towards him. "A mother's job is always protect and provide for her son." "Dear God, lady, what you gonna do to me?" he cried, trembling with tears in his eyes. "I'm gonna give back what you took from him." And shrinking into the night as the red began to glow from her eyes, the wind picked up a howl and leaving began to swirl and windwhirl, creating a vortex so loud that the whole town grew deaf for a moment, and there was silence in the moonlight. There was silence, stillness so peaceful, and even the church mouse couldn't be bothered. The following day, Carter Bale was nowhere to be found. They checked his shack, the woods, and even where his debritor, and no one had seen or heard from him. Rumors has it that he decided to skip town on a train car, head south, and try his hands on flavoring his moonshine. But before long he became a distant memory, soon to be forgotten by many. There was, however, a little boy who miraculously regained his sight after going blind. He lived happily normal life as most little boys do, but when his mother was asked about her thought of the miracle, state that nothing short answered to prayer, just as he had revealed a brand new pair of eyes. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys